Hello, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Amelia. I post random stuff on my channel apparently. No, I like to do weekly vlogs and some lifestyle-y bits, whether it's tips and advice or recently book stuff, or anything that could help you guys, or I'm interested in, or I just, something springs to mind, I'm like, oh, maybe this. But I mainly do weekly vlogs. Before we get into it, please give it a thumbs up, please comment down below, please subscribe, please check out my social medias. I'm gonna leave my link tree, I think, in the description now, so you can find my Goodreads, my TikTok, my Instagram, my Spotify, my Pinterest, stuff like that. You can find all my social medias and you can follow them down below, and they should pop up somewhere on the screen. And without further ado, let's just get on with the video. Okay, for this video I am doing, it's a little different from my channel. I did my yearly TBR, which is to be read list. I think one of the books that I finished is actually on that list. But I thought I would do my, it's now February, the end of, well, when I'm filming this, it's basically the end of February. When you're probably watching this, it's the beginning of March, middle of March, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to get this up, but it's going to be up at some point in March. It's probably going to be around the fact that I'm going to have like 3 book videos in a row, but I don't mind. I'm living for that because right now I have an obsession with reading. I set myself a goal this year to read at least 16 books. I think I'm probably going to go over it, which is good. This year, because I went from not reading at all for the last few years to then suddenly now having this massive spark of wanting to read and loving to read. So I thought I would do this video as reviewing the 5 books I've read so far this year. I'm going to go in order of when I read them, and I'm also going to do talk about the book I'm halfway through reading, nearly halfway through reading, and my predictions for what's going to happen at the end, or what's going to happen. I'm not sure how I feel about that book yet, so we're just going to get on with it. So my first book is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I will be honest, I did start reading it in either I think it was the end of 2020, early 2021. I was reading it mainly on train journeys, but I didn't read much of it because, again, I wasn't into reading. So I got to, like, I want to say about page 112, around here, maybe even a bit further. But it wasn't that far in. I think it could have been at least halfway, but maybe a bit under. And I didn't read it. I finished it in the first week of January this year. Obviously, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I have a massive obsession with Harry Potter. It's my favourite film series out there. It's one of those film series that I can watch any day, any time. I can just put it on and I won't get bored of it. But I haven't read the books in a while. And to be fair, I only think I've ever read the first 3 books. And like the 3rd book was long enough for me at the time. I was young. I was like in primary school when I got given the books. And I had loads of, like, they were the original covers as well, can I just make that point? And then my parents would give them to charity. And I'm kind of annoyed because I had to rebuy these books. But it's fine, because at the point I wasn't into reading and I was like, I'm probably not going to read them again. And then I got to the idea, I want to read these books. Because I haven't actually read the final 4 books. And I obviously want to see because I know the books have is different compared to the film. There's things that I've added into the books that are not in the film, and I really want to read it and actually understand the story a bit more because I love Harry Potter that much, and I thought it'd be different to actually watching the films. I have yet to start the other ones. I finished this one and then moving on to my other books, but I've got a whole year. I did really love the book. I think the first book is very much similar to the film. Compared to, I think, the other ones are, apart from small things that happen, like Neville got detention when in the film that never happened, because Neville followed the guys around at some point, and I thought it was a bit odd that they didn't do that in the film. I thought it would have been a bit more interesting if he did, because obviously Neville is not the kind of person to get into trouble, but Neville tried to protect his friends, and bless him. I think I gave this book about 4 stars, only because I do love the film. And I think this is the problem with the Harry Potter books is going to be for me, because I love the film series so much. I'm really going to be comparing the films to the book. I'm really hoping that, obviously, 4 stars is still a very good ranking, but I think we all know the story of Harry Potter well enough to, like, be able to pinpoint things. But I do like that a lot of it is true to the film, and in this one there's still things that are different. Like there's one scene I really wish they kept in, and it was the beginning book, and I wish I actually put in, was before Harry was taken to the Dursleys. Like, you saw the story of how everyone around town heard about Voldemort, and like how Vernon was going to work and stuff, and it was just I know it's a bit of a slow part, which is probably why I didn't put it in, because you know it had to get there. But I think it would have also told the story a little bit more of the uncle and auntie and the cousin, because I feel like you saw what they wanted you to see, which is what they didn't care for Harry and they didn't want him doing, going to Hogwarts, etc. But you didn't see what they were actually like and get to know them as a people. And I know they're not really the main parts, but they were part of Harry's life for like 11 years. So I did like the family, the family, I guess. What's the family energy? I don't think that's the word, but that's what I'm thinking of it. The way they are together as a family. I like the story in the book a bit more than the film, but I do love the film more. So the next one I read, I started reading of the year was Sally Rooney, Normal People. Again, I love the series. I watched it during 2020 lockdown. I actually started reading this and I didn't read it for a while, and I really was worrying in my head, I'm not going to read at all. Bearing in mind, I did start reading it when my birthday was coming up. So obviously I was drinking and I was socialising, that I didn't read much. It was when I was on the train back from Portsmouth that I started reading it and got into it. But I absolutely love the story of Normal People. I love the series, as mentioned, and I was worried I wasn't going to like the book. Now, when I started the book, I was a little unsure how I felt, because they have no quotation marks when people are speaking, and it's definitely a different writing style to what I am used to, and I was just not 100% sure about it. But I absolutely love this. This book is magnificent. That's the point. I think it's a different writing style. Once you get used to it, it's an alright to read. It definitely, I could resonate this with the series. Like, it was so dead on. Like, I am to warn you now, I don't actually have any bad criticisms for most of these books I'm reading, because they are pretty good. I ain't gonna lie to you. I started off the year at a really high standard that I'm really not sure I'm gonna be the rest of the year, but it's fine. I did give this book 4 stars, and it is mainly the writing style. It's not a writing style I was used to. I was used to quotation marks for speaking. The next one I read was Queenie by Carty-Williams. I bought this at the beginning of the first lockdown, and I bought it the Monday. Was it the Monday? Because the Monday I was on my Switch. I bought this on the Monday before lockdown happened, like the day lockdown was announced, and I was like, I'm going to read this during lockdown. I read the first chapter during lockdown and then I never looked at it again. I took it with me when I went back to uni and just never read it. But I put myself in there, I needed to read it. It wasn't that the book was, the story was boring, it was just, I just couldn't get into reading. I think it did have a little bit of a slow start and a little bit of a confusion start, but I read this year and I read it within a space of like 2 weeks. I absolutely love the story. It's absolutely fantastic. I think you get to know Queenie and you hear like her anxiety, her relationship troubles, her issue with just like sleeping around, and I think it's just a great story. It's funny. I think it's very resonating for like young people, but I absolutely love this book. This book got 5 stars for me. I was hooked on it. I gave myself a day when I was just going to read my books and have Once Upon a Time on in the background. I didn't really read it that much, but the next day I just sat there and I was like, I need to read this, and I read it. I sat there and just read it. Absolutely loved it. Was hooked on the story. It got 5 stars for me. I loved, like, you got the emails in it, you got text in it, you got like everything. This is just a marvellous piece of work. Like, the text, as if you're reading it from a phone, I actually love that idea. I think it's just different to what you get in normal books, and I just absolutely love the story of this. I genuinely will be picking it back up again at some point to read. I think it's definitely something that people should read at some point, because it's a stunning story. I do this all the time because my room is such a mess. I have nowhere to put things. The next one is a very, very highly spoken about book on BookTube and BookTok. Seven Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo. I have no words. This, before the book I'm going to review afterwards, which I've actually not really spoken about anyway yet, we're going to talk about it. This was my favourite book, and I thought it was going to stay up there, #1 of my books this year, and I cannot wait to do my top 10 books of the year at the end of the year, because honestly I cannot wait to see which makes it to the top 10. This book held it #1. I was obsessed. I fell in love with the character of Evelyn Hugo. She is a film star. She came from like a poor family, and she didn't want that, so she did whatever she could to get into the industry and to become famous and become an actress and to stay high. And you hear about all of the relationships she's had, the woman she fell in love with, and obviously back in the day when she was an actress, it was seen as wrong to be a lesbian or to be gay, so they had to hide it. Her relationship with her best friend Harry, I actually was moved so much by that, because the way they decided to have a kid together, and I don't want to spoil it, but I basically am. Sorry, but I will put spoilers in the title, just so people know. I absolutely love the story. I think the relationship with her and Harry was just perfect. The perfect friendship, like the fact that they had this relationship, they had sex to have a kid, even though both of them were gay, and I think it's just that they wanted to have a kid, and they both, out of all people, she'd rather have a kid with someone she knew she would care about her and care about the kid, as well as, like, you know, understand that she doesn't love him in that way. And everything that happens, it's just a very emotional, it's such a moving story, and I absolutely love it. And I like the fact that I was so ready to believe that there was nothing that could shock me at the end. I was like, I know what's going to happen. It's just going to be that she just told a story, her story comes out. Not that, again, spoiler, sorry, her daughter, the person she was doing the interview with, basically, why can't I remember her name, even though, Monique was the journalist who was writing a story for Evelyn and Hugo, and I didn't, for the whole story, she was sought out by Evelyn and her team, Evelyn to write the book for a specific reason, but no, she didn't know, and obviously the reader didn't know, but I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, oh, okay, maybe she just liked her writing, and that was it. Oh boy, was I wrong, finding out that the reason was her dad died at the wheel when Harry, well, not at the wheel, in the car with Harry, and then she put Monique's dad behind the car, which I understand why people, she saw Evelyn as a bad person. Well, she should see Evelyn as a bad person. Evelyn was trying to say she's not a good person, but she didn't understand what Evelyn did wrong. And then the idea that Evelyn had cancer and was going to end her life. I kind of, as soon as she said she had cancer, I kind of thought, you know, it made sense why she had to get the story written, and how she was willing to have this photo shoot, and then because she was going to end her life, and that was it. And it makes sense, but I didn't see it coming, and it was just a story that, it got 5 stars for me, if you couldn't tell. I absolutely loved it. I understand the hype, very much understand why everyone was talking about this book, and I cannot wait to read Taylor Jenkins Reid's next book of Daisy Jones and the Six, which is on my list of things to read this year. But my final book that I've read this year is another very highly talked about one on BookTok, BookTube, you know, Instagram, Bookstagram, you want to call it. Is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I was very apprehensive about reading this one. I was very worried I wouldn't like it because everyone spoke about it. Because one of those things when things are hyped, again with the same with Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I was worried I wouldn't like it. But I would say this was a little bit of a slow start for me, so I wasn't 100% sure I would like it. But oh my god, did I get hooked. I love the book. I think it's a good story. It's a very emotional story. The context is about a girl called Lily who is a florist. She grew up in a very abusive household. Her dad abused her mum a lot, and she was looking after this guy who was homeless, called Atlas, who and she fell in love with him, and then he ended up moving to Boston, and she then moved to Boston like when she graduated college because she wanted to get away from her dad, even though her dad got sick. The story starts with her on the day after her dad's funeral, and she meets this guy called Ryle, which is a very weird name, not gonna lie, but I like the interesting names because it's different. But Ryle is a doctor. She instantly gets an attraction to him, but thinks nothing of it because he's like, I don't do relationships, I only do one night stands. And eventually, you know, as you guessed the story, they fall in love. But he's a bit of a toxic guy. He ends up abusing her. First time she forgives him, but says it'll be the last time. Because he says he would never do it again. And obviously, it's one of those things you kind of know it's gonna happen again. You just don't expect it to then happens again. Then he tells her the story of like how he accidentally killed his brother when he was younger, and he blacks out now and then, he doesn't know who he is. So she kind of like, I wouldn't say forgave him, but was like, okay. And then they got married, and then it all happened again and it all was over this guy called Atlas, because he comes back into her life, and eventually things get intense. And I thought when it said ends, that was to do with a boy. It wasn't. It was to do with a kid, and it was so cute. I think as much as I didn't like the way Ryle was abusive and stuff, I did like the ending with her and Ryle, and how they, in some ways, maintained a good relationship for the kid. And I think in the end they ended things in a good way, because I think if they had stayed together for the kid, it would be damaging. But oh my god, this one holds close to my heart, and I'm very sorry this took my #1 spot. This gets 5 stars. I absolutely love the writing. So that's the books I have read this year. As for the book I'm reading, the only reason I'm showing it as a prediction is because it is a library book. It's not my own book, so it will be going back. I'm reading currently We Just Clicked by Annabelle, which I kind of like that name. I'm on chapter 14. It's very interesting. I think as someone who is trying to do social media, like is work on her social media like me, it's very interesting to read, because it's about a girl who wants to become a social media influencer, which obviously a lot of the world does. And I mean, I am working on my YouTube and my Instagram because I want that in some ways. But it's very interesting. It starts off with a prologue, where she is out like a couple of years before the story actually starts, with her brother getting an engagement ring for his girlfriend of 15 years, and then just at the and then I think it's the end of the prologue. I did only start this yesterday, so I should know. Yeah, it's at the end of the prologue. Yeah, at the end of the prologue, she finds out from her dad that her brother actually died. He had a heart condition, and no one knew about it because he didn't know. And she when she's on the way home to meet her family in Basingstoke, she bumps into this guy called Aidan. He helps her all the way home, even though he doesn't have to. He misses his train, takes her to Basingstoke on the train, puts her in a taxi, and then goes back to where he was going from. And then a couple of years later, she's living with her brother who passed away, his ex-fiance, and you know, she's trying to do social media. Her social media is growing, but not quite there to make it full time. So she works in this company. She meets this guy called Luke, who is also doing social media, and eventually they decide to fake date, so to make it look good on Instagram, to both grow their Instagrams together. Alongside this, she then bumps into Aidan on a night somewhere else, and I do like the fact that it's based in London, because, well, based in England, and Basingstoke especially. I mean, I've not been to Basingstoke. I have friends who live there, but I obviously know where it is, and I think it's just something I could go, like, that's kind of relatable because it's close. You don't have many books that are based in a place like, yeah, Surrey, Hampshire way, I don't know. But anyway, I absolutely love this. I'm liking the book. Not loving it. Liking it is the word. I just can predict, because after reading the back of it and after reading the half of it, she's going to fake date this guy. He's going to be looking so much like on social media. She's then going to fall for Aiden, who doesn't have social media, but he's going to find out that she's dating Luke, and it's going to get complicated. And it could really, really ruin her reputation on social media, and she could lose her following, which I think she's worrying about, but it's fine. I'm intrigued to see what happens. I have one major criticism. It's so stupid, but there's a line was saying, I was meant to say, have we met before? And it goes, have me, as an M-E, met before. And I know it's an obvious accidental mistake, but I'm just like, should you have proofread this before publishing it? That is the end of this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please comment down below, please subscribe, and I will see you again very soon with another video.